Okay, welcome to the Panic Room on Tuesday of Easter week, and thanks to all of you who've made some kind of comments. There's been quite a few about the Easter Bunny, actually. But Steve, how are you doing in your darkened room somewhere out west?
I'm doing okay. I think the light is making me look a bit jaundiced, but maybe I'm just feeling a bit jaundiced as well because this is what, week 3 of lockdown. And I think people are starting to unravel. Like, I want to show you something that was in the paper today, and maybe people feel this themselves. This is
Okay.
by Johannes Leek. It's early days, but the evidence points to a flattening of the curve. And we're going, see, that wasn't so hard, was it? And everyone going crazy, and kids and people looking for jobs. So is that how you feel, Dave?
I feel enormously thankful. I feel that I don't have any right to complain because, unlike many others, I think I'm phenomenally privileged. I don't like this, but small things. I have a balcony. I look out on green. I can go out. I don't live in Melbourne, or Tasmania, so I can go out whenever I want. Basically, I have food. I have a lovely wife with me. I don't have any kids crammed in the apartment. So for me, it's okay. I'll be glad when it's all over, and I'm glad the news is good in Australia anyway. At least that the curve is not just flattened, but it's going down. But you seem to be unraveling a little bit, Steve. Can I help you? Can we do some counselling?
Yeah, look, speaking of unraveling, Wilson has started to unravel. He started a Lord of the Flies. I guess when you toilet paper, flies and toilet paper go together well, but he started to unravel a bit. And it's a question I'm thinking. You think about Lord of the Flies and how quickly a society could unravel.
Yeah.
Do you think that this could go one way or the other, Dave?
I don't think it will do here. Although if they did a strong lockdown here and banned Australians from the bush, from the 3 Bs, the bush, Barbies, and beaches, then I think there would be a riot. I think it would unravel at a more serious level in terms of people not working, not having money, domestic violence, numerous other things, and if there was ever a shortage of food. But thankfully, we live in a very privileged country, which is food self-sufficient. Anyway, have you been reading anything interesting?
Why, I'm glad you asked. Yes, best article I have read in the last few days is by Catherine McGregor in The Australian. This article here, which I'll put a link up to, it's called Time to Ponder Eternity as Daylight Saving Clocks Off. So apparently people in the east coast of Australia have daylight savings. We don't have it here because it sends the cows mad and fades the curtains or something. But she talks about the fact that our nation is now brought closer together. There's not 3 hours time difference between Dave and myself now. There's only 2. She said, as the clocks have brought our nation closer together as we're retreating further and further from each other. But she says, in a sense, she's saying never waste a crisis. This is a good time to think about mortality. And we're talking about mortality a lot in this Easter week. It's the Tuesday. And the first Tuesday we thought about for Easter was Shrove Tuesday on the 25th or 26th of February, where you're supposed to use up all your flour, your butter, your sugar, and your milk, because there'll be plenty of that after Easter. Yet, here we are. So some things come out of left field. But here's what she says about mortality. We are all mortal. To dust we shall return. Whether you believe that's the end of the story or the beginning of eternity, fundamental to being human is that one inescapable reality. We are all going to die. Whether you have 1 million Twitter followers, like Dave, or have never had an account, there's a future day that will begin without you. What about that statement? There's a future day that will begin without you.
There is a future day that will begin without us on this earth, but I do think God has set eternity in our hearts, as Ecclesiastes says. It's interesting because flour is now the new toilet roll, so Wilson's out, really. This is gold dust. This is the new currency. We have been hunting for flour all over Sydney because everyone's taking up home baking. And we managed to get this very expensive certified organic plain flour, but it's flour. It's like, you know, in that sense, it's like everything runs out and we run out and our time runs out. I think that article is brilliant. And I think that her perspective on things is absolutely fascinating, given especially where she's coming from as a trans person who doesn't think that you can change sex. I think she's an amazing person.
She's an amazing person, former Defence Force person who's been on tours of duty, highly conservative politically, friend of Tony Abbott, trans person, great cricket writer. Yeah. She's been writing some of the best articles on this topic this last week or two. I've been reading her quite often on these things. Great writing on that issue of eternity and where we're headed.
And I'm reading something as well, Julia Baird's Phosphorescence, and I can tell you that this will not be the last time you hear of this book. But speaking of which, have you been reading anything by Julia Baird?
Why, yes, I have, Dave. There you go. Great segue. Yeah. Another great article in the paper. She wrote on a weekend, Jesus Christ was trending on Twitter yesterday and not for the right reasons. I thought, what's he done wrong? Much of it was just due to people swearing. But the main issue she was talking about was that viral video that went around of our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, praying. Yeah. And she contrasted perhaps what's unfortunate in America, and you've written about the muscular sort of anti-scientific crazy preachers who are saying, just meet, it doesn't matter, this is a conspiracy. She's contrasting that with our Prime Minister praying and said, come on people, he's an Orthodox Christian. Orthodox Christians pray. In fact, it cuts across political divides. In America, as many Democrats pray as Republicans. It doesn't mean we're somehow becoming a theocracy. Thoughts on that, Dave?
Well, did she not use the phrase genuine Christian as well?
Yes, that's what she used.
That was for me fascinating, because when you see that clip, he didn't do that to be seen by people. In fact, I was even doubtful if it had been shared. He's just in a prayer meeting and he asked if he could pray, and somebody put it online. And I actually think it's a very moving piece. And I think she's quite right to point out he's a genuine Christian and genuine Christians pray. And I've actually been reflecting on that a lot, because I've been thinking, let me confess this, how poor my prayer life is in many ways. And one of the things that this lockdown or partial lockdown is causing me to do is to reflect and to be able to pray a bit more. I don't know if that's been the same for you. I mean, we are going to have to go because we have to come back tomorrow, and we don't want to keep. Somebody said, I like what you do because it's nice and short, unlike your sermons. But we have to go. I mean, have you got anything to add just before we leave?
Yeah, look, last thing by Julia, then a verse to go with. Julia says, let's not scoff at prayer. Millions are reaching to God and the good, hoping we can somehow survive. Let's be gentle with one another. And I thought that was a great thing to say. And the last verse, perhaps we can, this is from the wisdom literature of the Bible, from the book of Job. Job was a great man who suffered a lot. And he says this, man, and I presume he means everyone, a man who is born of a woman is few of days and full of trouble. How's that to go out on, Dave?
I think it's a great one to go out on. And listen, this was not scripted or planned in any sense whatsoever. But I listened last night to one of the best sermons I've ever heard. The fact it was by my son, I'm not biased at all. In fact, I'd be much more critical. But he's in the middle of a housing scheme in Dundee, and he's preaching in the middle of this crisis. And he was preaching on Job 13 and 14. And we'll put a link to it because it's stunning. Job is so relevant for what we're going through today. And I love that verse, because in the rest of the chapter, there is some hope, then it disappears again. And I just love the realism of Job. So good choice.
Yep, great thoughts that we end on. Yes, and do listen to Dave's son's sermon. And Dave will be spruiking cleaning products next. No, but great way to go out on. If you've never read the book of Job, it's realistic about suffering. It doesn't make it light. It doesn't make it without hope, but it says it is a real thing. So until tomorrow, we'll see you.
God bless.